What is the function of hyphen WEBKIT hyphen in CSS, or hyphen MOZ hyphen, or hyphen MS hyphen, or hyphen O hyphen? Chances are, if you have been working with CSS for a while, you have probably come across these hyphens. What exactly is their purpose? Well, these hyphens are called vendor prefixes or prefixes. Pardon the pronunciation. In this video, I'm going to help you understand what vendor prefixes are, their functions, why you should use them, and some reasons why you shouldn't use them. By the way, if you see me looking at this direction here, I have an outline of things I would like to talk about in this video so I don't forget any of them. And to understand the function of vendor prefixes, you have to understand what browser engines are. A browser engine, also known as a layout engine or rendering engine, is a core component of major browsers, and the goal is to transform HTML documents and other resources of a web page into an interactive visual representation on a user's device. A browser engine is that engine that takes your HTML, CSS, and JavaScript and transforms and interprets that into a web page that a user can interact with. Now, for the different major browsers that you have different rendering engines. For example, here Apple created the WebKit engine, which is used for Safari. Google originally was using WebKit for Chrome, but eventually forked it and is now using the Blinked engine. Microsoft has two engines, Trident and Edge HTML, and Trident is used in Internet Explorer. Edge HTML was originally used in the Edge browser, but now it is remade for the Blink engine. Mozilla developed the Gecko engine, which it uses in the Firefox browser. Okay, now you understand browser engines. How does this relate with vendor prefixes? Well, an easy way to think of vendor prefixes are prefixes that indicate non-standardized features. And let me give an example. Now, let's say I'm the creator behind the Chrome browser, for example, and I want to introduce a new feature, a new property called magic. And the goal of magic is that when you use it with a value of always, this will do some magic to your website, make it beautiful, fancy. Now, when I introduce this new property, it's not going to be standard immediately because developers would have to experiment with it, play with it. I get feedback, and then I know how to improve that property before I make it standard. Now, because it's not standard, what I would do is to hide the property under a vendor prefix. A vendor in this case refers to the organization behind a browser. So in my case, I can hide it under a vendor prefix of -Chrome-. And let's say Mozilla also wants to introduce this new property to their browser. Because it's not standard yet, what they would also do is to hide it under -MOZ, which means in your CSS, if you just have magic always, it would not work in a Chrome browser, it would not work in a Mozilla browser, it would not work in any browser because these browsers do not understand it. If you want to specify that, yes, I know this is not a standard property, but I want to use it anyways, maybe because you want to play with it or because you like it, then you have to specify the vendor prefix like -Chrome-magic or -MOZ-magic, and then you can use that property. Now, vendor prefixes can be used also on functions, on pseudo classes, on pseudo elements. They can be used for pretty much any feature in CSS that is not standardized yet. Now, let's say I've gotten a lot of feedback around the magic property, and now I'm ready to standardize it. By standardizing it, I'm no longer hiding it under that vendor prefix, and now you can use the property directly. But this would only work on updated versions of the Chrome browser. So for previous Chrome browsers, you will still need the -Chrome-magic for it to work. And this also means that if Mozilla or Safari has not yet standardized the magic property, you would still need the vendor prefixes for it to work on those browsers. Until everybody standardizes this property, you have to keep using vendor prefix. So this means that if you want to use the magic property, for example, you'd have to specify magic always, because for updated browsers that have standardized this property, they are no longer hidden under vendor prefixes, so you can use the property directly. But then you also need to have -Chrome-magic always for your users who may not have updated their Chrome browsers yet. So if you still want that magic property to work for them, you still have to use the vendor prefix. And then you also have to use -MOZ-magic because some of your users may not have updated their Firefox browsers, even when Firefox has already standardized this property in the new version. So this is why I've probably seen this in somebody's CSS, where they would have one property, then they would have a -WEBKIT version of that property, they'll have a -MOZ version of that property, sometimes they would even have a -MS version of that property. You're having all of these versions so that this can support all your users, whether they are using the updated versions of their browsers or they are still using the previous versions. -WEBKIT- is not doing anything special to your CSS. Nope, it is just required if you want to use properties that haven't been standardized yet, or you want to use it to target users who may not have updated their browsers yet. Now you're probably wondering, when I use font size or color or background color, why don't I use vendor prefixes with them? Well, the reason for this is that they're widely supported, so even in the previous versions of these browsers, they are supported and you do not need any vendor prefix to use them. But the reason why you'll be using vendor prefix for certain properties or functions or pseudo classes or pseudo elements is because these features were introduced recently. They are not yet widely supported or adopted by different browsers, and so they are needed. Now, one more thing I have in my outline here is that the need for using vendor prefixes are now reducing. There are a couple of reasons for this, but I'm going to share 3, and the third one is actually a big one. First reason is that non-standardized features are now becoming standardized in different browsers. The more they become standardized and the more users update their browsers to these new versions, you won't be needing a lot of vendor prefixes for some of the features that I currently use vendor prefixes for. Remember, like I said, once these features becomes standard, they are no longer hidden behind a vendor prefix. And the second reason why using vendor prefixes are reducing is because we now have tools like auto prefixer. The goal of tools like auto prefixer is to automatically add vendor prefixes to your CSS. So when you set up auto prefixer in your web application, you can use a property like magic always, and auto prefixer will help you add the vendor prefix for Chrome, for Safari, for different browsers. It has some form of compatibility data where it's able to check the different browsers that need vendor prefixes. And now the third reason why the use of vendor prefixes are reducing is because some browsers are now turning off vendor prefixes, and this is specifically for Chrome. So as we saw earlier, Chrome was using WebKit as its rendering engine before, but ever since Chrome moved to WebKit, then they had this question: will we use a Chrome vendor prefix now? And then they have a whole story here. As of today, Chrome is adopting a policy on vendor prefixes, one that is similar to Mozilla's recently announced policy, which is this one. I'll leave a link below, you can check out these things. But what I want to show you here is that, as Chrome says, in short, we won't use vendor prefixes for new features. Instead, we'll expose a single setting in about flags to enable experimental DOM CSS features for you to see what's coming, play around, and provide feedback. There's a lot of story here, but the idea here is that they'll be removing support for vendor prefixes moving forward. So for any new feature they want to introduce, if it is not standard yet, it's going to be hidden under an experimental flag. And this would result in a couple of things. Experimental flags are things you turn on manually on your device, which means when you want to use any of these not supported properties, you have to manually turn on that flag in your device and you can test it. And this also means that if you deploy your application with a not supported property, it would not work on your user's device unless they manually turn on that flag for their Chrome. So this is definitely discouraging you from pushing non-supported features to production. You should only push to production things that have been supported. So this video is longer than I imagined it to be, but I hope this video helps you to understand the whole idea behind vendor prefixes and why you keep seeing these hyphens flying around when playing with CSS. One last thing I just want to recommend is that before you use any feature in CSS, you can check how supported that feature is on caniuse.com. For example, I can come here and I can specify has. Has in CSS is a recent pseudo class, and here you can see, okay, this is supported on the recent versions of Chrome, Edge, Safari, but as you can see, it's not supported on Firefox unless you enable this flag. So this will be able to help you guide your decision on what CSS features to use and what not to use. Again, I hope this video helps clarifies what vendor prefixes are, helps you understand what rendering engines are, and helps you understand why you keep seeing hyphens flying around. I have other CSS videos on my channel that I believe you'd enjoy. 2 of them are currently on the screen. You can check it out. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with others, and subscribe for more CSS videos like this. And also let me know in the comments what you learned in this video.